Hi everyone, Jess O'Gar, clinical psychologist for the sitecollective.com, and today we are going to talk about emotions, but we're actually going to talk about control of emotions and more specifically focusing on over control of emotions. So put a bell curve up here today to kind of give a bit of a representation of what we're looking at. Now, as with everything within a bell curve, most of us sit here in the middle and then we see the extremes at the tail end of each side. Now, what we're looking at here is control of emotions in terms of how do people control the expression of what they're feeling or what's going on for them. People who present with what we call under control of emotions, they're the ones who have a lot of emotional expression. They're excitable, they're impulsive, they're dramatic, they like attention. You can see what they're feeling. It's kind of the proverbial wearing their heart on their sleeve. You can see it all over their face. They have lower inhibitions, they like novelty, they like fun and excitement and these sort of things. So they're really kind of open with their emotions and have a broad range of emotions. Sometimes as we get towards the kind of maladaptive end of this under control, the emotions are spilling out all over the place and they actually need to learn a little bit more on how to rein it in. What we're going to focus more on today is actually what over control of emotions look like, okay? Because this is something that has only kind of recently come to light in the literature. It was originally something developed from a guy called Thomas Lynch over in the UK, who's developed a thing called radically open DBT, which is how I came across it when I did a training workshop. And it talks about the portion of the population, and particularly of kind of our clinical population, where they may present with almost no emotional expression. So it's more of an emotional inhibition. So if you've seen my schema talks, we've talked about emotional inhibition actually being a type of schema. We also it can be a bit of like a detached protector sort of mode thing. But here with the over control of emotions, what they're looking at is someone who has high perfectionistic tendencies, very, very driven, very kind of task focused, detail oriented, really good with things like delayed gratification. They inhibit their emotions as a sense of kind of safety and protection. Unfortunately, that means they can be hard to get to know, and they're also kind of hard to communicate with because people with an over control of emotions often present with what the literature will call flat face, but what the rest of us just call resting bitch face, right? So the reason why the over control actually have some more difficulties at this end is because as you get down towards this end of it, not only do you have difficulty expressing or communicating your emotions to other people, but we'll also find that those people with over control have difficulty expressing and identifying their emotions to themselves and start to get into this thing called alexithymia, which is lack of words to express mood, okay? So while people at this end can often get called control freak, they can sometimes be quite rigid and inflexible. They want things done a certain way because all of it is around about control. It actually creates a lot of relationship difficulties because they start feeling really lonely, but don't always know why. Now, if you've ever come across someone who has a kind of emotional over control presentation and they're the ones that you tell them a hilarious joke, some of your best dad joke material, and they're just kind of flat faced, you're not getting much feedback from them. You're not really getting a sense of what they like or what they don't like, or they're just kind of this stony face all of the time. That's not very engaging, right? So what happens here is people who are over controlled actually get excluded a lot within their relationships or within their social circles. But because they don't think that what they're doing of controlling their emotions is actually problematic, then they actually don't always have a lot of insight as to what's going on. So we get this loneliness, but we actually also can get a fair bit of envy and bitterness because, well, why didn't I get invited to the dinner party? I like dinner parties, even though you may be the one that sits at the end of the table and doesn't laugh at the jokes or enjoy it in the conversation and kind of stares down your nose at everybody because they're not behaving appropriately. But if you're the kind of over control person who doesn't see a problem with that and everyone else sees a problem with that, then you're going to be the one down here kind of going, why am I being excluded all the time? So what actually happens, the over control of emotions, while the person is engaging in those behaviors as a form of self-protection by always maintaining control and composure, we get relationship difficulties, okay? Now, there's a number of factors that can contribute to the development of this over control, and they come down to this nature-nurture coping thing, right? So nature in terms of what is the person's temperament like when they're born. And what we can see is there is often a low reward sensitivity, but a high threat sensitivity, meaning that good things don't really register, bad things super register. Really hypervigilant, on the lookout for all the bad stuff, which reinforces this need to kind of be in control to make sure the bad things don't happen. They've got a high inhibitory control, so they're actually really good at kind of the self-discipline sort of thing. And they've got a high attention to detail, so they're quite good with the task focus. If you combine that with a parenting style that says you must be controlled at all times, if you show kind of any sign of emotion is weakness, you're definitely not allowed to cry, kind of winning is essential, you must always be prepared, and the focus is all around task, performance, control, those sort of messages combined with this nature is going to create this propensity for the over control. Throw in a coping style where there's a sense of masking my inner feelings, there's this kind of compulsive striving, it's the attention to detail, it's avoiding any unplanned risk because I don't know what's coming, so I wouldn't be able to control for it, so I just won't do anything new or novel or spontaneous. And there's actually this sense of distress over tolerance, right? Now, here's the problem. The people who are under controlled, and they're the ones that are partying and acting out and all over the place, they will actually get better and come more this way over time, because people are going to go, no, that's not acceptable, that's not appropriate, rein it back in. So these guys actually get better over time. These guys actually get a little bit stuck because unintentionally, they actually get a lot of reinforcement. You think about it from an employer's point of view, if they've got someone who never gets flustered, task-oriented, always cool, calm and collected, that sort of stuff gets reinforced, right? If you've got the child who sits at the back of the classroom and doesn't get distracted when the other kids are mucking around and always gets their homework done on time and sits quietly and is never flustered and never a behavioral management problem, that's also going to get praised and reinforced, okay? So society kind of likes this, right? Particular organizations and occupations are things like military personnel. They basically teach this stuff, right? Emergency services, particularly for police officers going into those sort of high volume intensity sort of situations, this is what they're looking for. So this can actually get a little bit stuck, which kind of reinforces this coping strategy of I can tolerate anything and everything, but I'm lonely. So the work done by Thomas Lynch in 2018, he published these books on textbooks. They're written for clinicians on kind of how to run groups. I haven't come across any patient or client directed textbooks at the moment. I'm sure he's working on them. We've made up a very quick, whoa, can you give that back to me, please? Thank you, Dr. Al. We've made up a very quick handout that is already up on our website under the Untangling Emotions page that gives an overview of this. But with the Radically Open DBT, they focus on 3 areas of actually trying to create change. The first one being self-inquiry, getting the person to actually start to notice what is the internal emotional experience and what is the external emotional kind of presentation. So what are you feeling on the inside and what are you showing the world? And trying to get people to actually understand that if they're over controlled, there's probably a mismatch between what's going on inside and what's going on outside, okay? The next then comes this thing they call social signaling. So trying to actually teach people how to communicate their emotions through things like facial expression and body language, right? It was interesting, in the training course that I went to, they actually spent half an hour talking about the function, use and application of eyebrows and talking about kind of like when you have your eyebrows up, it signalizes kind of surprise and welcoming, but when you have your eyebrows down, that it communicates a different message. And so in the RODBT stuff, they use a lot of this kind of role play and mimicry and silliness and stuff to actually try and help people to understand what they're doing with their face, what message is that sending, is that kind of mismatch to what message you're trying to send, to help people get this awareness of how they're using their body. The third thing is then social connectedness. So looking at how do you allow yourself to experience at least enough of your emotion to have a connection with another person, okay? Everything Brene Brown has told us is that you can't have connection without vulnerability. So they've got to get in touch with their emotions and their vulnerability in order to be able to connect with other people. So RODBT involves a lot of novelty, a lot of silliness. They tried to get us to cluck like chickens in the workshop. I wasn't having a bar of it, but I think that's because I kind of sit a little bit more to this side than that side. But if this is something that you're interested in, if this is something that's resonating with you, if you know that you are someone or can identify that you're someone who's a little bit more on the over control, this is something I would strongly recommend that you work with your therapist on, okay? This sort of treatment, as I said, it started in the UK, so it's a lot bigger over there. It's moving into America. It's just starting over here in Australia for us. There's not many kind of groups out there for this sort of thing, but there are clinicians obviously going through the training to learn about this sort of stuff. So check out our website. We've got the handout up there. I'm not going to try and pick it up again. I'll probably drop it. That's okay because I'm practicing not being controlled of everything, including the piece of paper. If you found this useful, if you think this sounds like you, if you want to know more about it, drop us a comment below on the YouTube channel, share this around on Facebook for us, or hit us up with a comment there. Find us on Instagram, check out the website, thesitecollective.com/untangling emotions. Hit subscribe on that YouTube channel, and I will see you next time. Thanks, guys.